Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Words on Whiskey, episode 55. Thank you for joining us. You're all very welcome. And I think we have a great show lined up this evening with what would be one of the new generation of distillers in the Irish whiskey landscape. And it's fantastic to see that, we're recruiting from home and we're finding the young generation out there who are keen, eager, hungry, and have a slightly different view on things maybe than us old fogies. But look, like I said, I'm delighted to welcome this evening Eva O'Doherty, who was recently appointed distiller at the new Midleton Micro Distillery. And we'll bring Eva in and take it from there. If you do have questions, please do just post them in and we'll be delighted to answer. So thank you. Good evening, Eva.
Good evening, Sergio. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you for having me on Words of Whiskey tonight. I'm so excited now to be part of this.
Oh, look, I'm delighted to have you on board. And, I'm sorry I missed the official launch of the Rye and Malt last week. I would have caught up with you down there last time, but I'm sure you can fill us all in about it and
that's it.
Tell us what's happening.
That's exactly it. Yeah. So do you want to?
Yeah, you had I take it you were working in the distillery today, and hopefully you're not there now.
No. I make sure to get home in time for this. Yeah, don't worry. It's always a busy day in the micro, but it's great because no day is ever the same. There's always something to keep you entertained down there. So it's a great place to work.
I mean, it's a very different setup, of course, to the rest of the distillery, but still, it's made a hell of a noise for the size that it is.
Oh, exactly, yeah. So a bit of backstory on the micro distillery. So it was built in 2015 and commissioned in 2016, and the main function of our micro distillery is it's our innovation hub. So it's basically my playground and other distiller playgrounds where we come and learn the art and craft of distillation itself. Yeah. So innovation, education, experimentation are three main bases that we use our micro distillery for. So Jensen has a graduate distillers program, and from there, graduate distillers come in and learn the art of distillation. So the main difference in the micro distillery in comparison to the main distillery is that the micro is all manually operated in comparison to fully automated in the main distillery. So we don't have the likes of the SCADA system that they use in the main distillery. So every single lever, valve, pressure gauge, temperature gauge in the micro distillery is in our full control. So the beauty of that is you learn very quickly if you're doing things right, but also if you're doing things wrong down there.
Well, so best way of learning.
That's it every day. Yeah, it's a great experience, and oh my gosh, to have that at my fingertips every single day has me so excited down there. It's a real pinch me moment.
Yeah, I mean, you're originally from County Meath.
I am indeed, yes.
Yeah, and you've made your way down to Cork. But how did all this come about, Eva? How did you get involved in? Firstly, I know you went to TU or DIT as it was at the time, and was it always something that was a burning ambition to get into the distilling industry?
Yeah, like even going back to when I was in school, like even secondary school, like I was really drawn towards the sciences, so the likes of biology and home economics. I absolutely love them, like life sciences as well. I was really interested in like the diet, nutrition, and even like the gut. The gut was a big thing for me as well. And the like kombucha, that's what really sparked my interest as well. And so leading on from that, it was coming up to the Leaving Cert, and these are my strong subjects, and I really, really loved them. And I was trying to get advice of like what I could do, like what career avenues I could go down. And someone gave me very good advice that at the end of the day, every single person has to eat food and drink. So there's always going to be a demand there for jobs. So I was like, that makes sense. And then pairing that with my love and passion for food and beverages, I stumbled across the course that was available in DIT, which is now TUD, which was food innovation. Yeah. So initially when I started the course, it was purely food innovation. So like food science, creating new products, NPD, and the whole aspect of creating a business so that you're ready to launch a new product if you develop one. So that excited me. And for my first 2 years of my level 8 degree, I focused around that. And then in my third and fourth year, we streamed into the beverage side of things. So I'll never forget it. On our first day of third year, we went into college and they sat us all down and told us about this stream that was becoming available, because previous to this, to do brewing and distilling, you had to go and do your master's in Heriot Watt in Scotland. So there was nothing like it of its kind in Ireland. So there was kind of like a race on between DIT and Carlow IT of who was going to have the first graduates. And DIT always got the edge by streaming us in our final 2 years. They were going to have the first graduates with this degree. So there was 10 spaces available to us. So it was all based on merit. So luckily enough, myself and some of my friends were able to stream into this side of the course. So from here, as part of our Brewing and Distilling degree, we were able to take placement in different industries. So that's where Irish Distillers come into play, because Irish Distillers collaborate with the likes of DIT and other colleges also to initiate placement for these students. So out of the 10 of us, some of us went to Diageo. Myself and another girl went to Irish Distillers. There was Carlow Brewing. There was a few places around that they all went to. So it's part of that. That's initially how I started in Irish Distillers. I came down here in summer. It was April 2018. Yeah, I came down just before the summer. And yeah, I came down here and I was only 20 at the time. I was a baby. And I started underneath Rye Nation, our old master distiller. He was my direct manager at the time. So I'll never forget, on our first day, myself and the other girl, Eve, so there was Eve and Eva starting together. So we probably had everyone's heads melted when we arrived. And he asked us who would like to go down to the micro and who would like to go up to the bond. And he was like, I can flip a coin or you can decide. And Eve turned to me and she said straight away, she's like, I really want to go up to the bond. So I was like, right, that's grand. I want to go down to the micro. So it just worked out fine. So So I was only initially meant to be down there for 12 weeks for my placement. And I think I ended up staying until, I think it was the end of September, near the start of October. I think I got it extended 2 or 3 times when I was down there, because initially when I went in, I was working in the micro distillery for the first 3 months. So I was working closely with Brona Kelly and Henry Donnelly. Henry was the distiller of the micro distillery at the time. So he's actually the only male distiller that's been there to date as well. And
really?
Yeah, he has.
Okay, so how the tides have changed.
I know, that's it.
Yeah, fantastic.
But, so I worked closely with the two of those, and I had a great time down the micro. Oh my gosh, I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, you did your final year project there.
I did indeed, yeah. So at the end of my 3 months in the micro, Brian actually came to me and asked me, would I like to be part of a project that they were going to be launching? And who says no to an offer like that? It's not every day you have Rye Nation coming to you offering you something like that. So of course I snapped the hand off and I said, I'd love to take part. So it actually turned out to be our Method of Madness gin that we have. So I managed to get my final year project out of that. Yeah. So
and you came first, I believe. So
indeed, yeah. A lot of hard work went into it now, but I'd be lost without the guys in Midleton. Oh my gosh, they were great. So I actually carried out all the distillation trials for them on the gin, basically establishing the base code and the recipe of the gin on like what botanicals were going to be going into it. So by the time I finished my placement, I think it was definitely in the 30s. I did 30 something distillations, trial distillations now for us, because we have a fantastic facility in the distillery, a central lab. It's basically like a pilot scale mini distillery. So I had a mini little pot. It was only a 5 litre pot. And it was glass, and I'll never forget it because I had these probes, temperature probes that crossed over, and we had to be innovative as well about how we were going to get the botanicals into this pot still, because there was only one way in, one way out, and it was made of glass. So I was warned, if something gets stuck in there, you're going to have to break it to get it out. So make sure that doesn't happen. So we actually, to get our botanicals for our trials, I'll never forget, I actually had to learn how to sew as well. We had muslin cloth, sewed it into the equivalent of socks nearly. And we filled our botanicals into that, sewed it up, and we just put a big string at the end of it and inserted it into the little still, and we're pulling it out. But my heart every day at the end of distillation trying to take it back out without snapping those probes.
I mean, that Method Madness gin is produced now in the micro distillery as well. So you do have a gin still.
That's it, yeah. So like it's been fantastic to be able to see it from a small scale to a large scale production. So the gin still is Mickey's Belly, as he's also known as. He's actually Ireland's oldest gin still, and that actually dates back to 1958. So it's been fantastic that it's been recommissioned for us, and you should see it if anyone has the privilege of coming down to the micro distillery. Like the micro distillery building dates back to the 1800s. It's very old, and we have beams that run across the ceiling. But you'll actually see on our gin still that the line arm it's a serious amount of craftsmanship went into recommissioning it. It's just lovely. It like just fits over the beam like fantastically to our condenser. Like there was such precision when it was going in. But it's been fantastic being able to distill gin and whiskey, to be able to play around with both spirit types.
Sure.
But because the gin still is so old as well, oh my gosh, you have to say sweet nothings to it to keep him happy at the same time, because he can give out every now and again.
Yeah, I mean, there's no hiding place with gin really either. I mean,
no.
you are really learning fundamentals there and getting to grips with that. Look, well, you mentioned the micro distillery, so I have a few photos we took when we were down there last time. I'll see maybe you can talk us through some of these and tell us. So I'm assuming that is a basic introduction photo there for the guests coming.
That's what we use in our academy. It describes like our triple distillation process and our grain intake. So we kind of like, if anyone has the privilege to come up to the academy to spend a day up there, Tommy Byrne is in the academy now. So he will take visitors through the whole process, right from grain intake to fermentation, distillation and maturation. So like it's a really exciting process, and you really get like an in-depth view of the whole process from start to finish.
Yeah. Let's see if I can show the stills now. This wasn't moving for me earlier, but we'll try and make them move. Okay, so look, I mean, we say micro distillery. It's actually quite large, but it is all manually controlled. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, so I think we're very lucky in the fact that it is manually controlled, and it's so aesthetically pleasing at the same time.
Yes.
It's very tidy and neat. So we have our lovely platform there going to our 3 pot stills on our whiskey side. So the one closest to us in that picture is our spirit still, the middle one is our faints, and the furthest away is our wash still. So our wash still holds 2,500 litres, and our intermediate and our spirit is 1,500. So to a lot of people, micro, it probably seems like a large, but to us, it's very small in comparison to our main distillery. But it's a great playground to learn the art of distillation, and like we're saying, it's our playground for innovation to push those boundaries.
Yes, I mean, how much of what happens here makes its way into the larger distillery?
So everything, the whole purpose of the micro is to do that batch to batch trial. So if we were to release something and it does phenomenally well, there is that option that, because we are so closely linked to the main distillery, that it could be produced in the main distillery. But we are just so busy at the minute. I'm sure if you ask anyone that works there, we are just flat to the mat at the minute in terms of our main distillery. So the micro is lovely. It's more relaxed down there. Like we get to play around with an awful lot more, and it is that batch to batch variation. So it's great.
So that batch to batch variation gives you the ability to change things up much more easily without, ruining the contents of a whole large still as well, and I guess gives you the more flexibility.
That's exactly it, because at the end of the day, it's all trial and error with us, and all well and good if something goes well. But imagine if you're in the main distillery and you isolate a whole section and then things don't work out. So we're very lucky that we have that outlet in the micro distillery to play around with. So that's our lovely distiller safe as well. So you can see that's actually where we make our manual cuts. So I work.
So why are there seem to be 6 there, is it?
So there's 3 sections, to it, and there's 2 bowls in the first window, 2 bowls in the middle, and there's 3 bowls in the last window. So that every window kind of represents a still. So the one furthest on the left there is directly correlated to our wash still. The middle is our faints, and the right is our spirit. So I work closely with Catherine Condon. She's the distiller of the main distillery, and Catherine gives me what's called a distiller's directive. So that's basically the equivalent of basically like a recipe when you're making a cake. That's the only way I can describe it. So from here, I can make my cuts based on her directive. So we can go by strength, the volume in our receivers, or even by sensory analysis. Because the beauty of our distiller safe is in a lot of distilleries, you'll actually see them, but they're locked and it's fully automated. Whereas we are constantly monitoring our distillation as it's running. So we will be opening that safe and assessing our distillate as it flows through. So myself and Catherine will actually be able to look at our distillate as it's flowing through and assess it in terms of our cuts that we make. And we love bouncing ideas off each other then, being like, what do you think? What do you think? And pushing each other's knowledge. And that way we can know for further distillations also that if we should have made the cut maybe slightly earlier, or we push it even later again next time. So it's great that we're able to have that immediate result from our spirit. So it's just phenomenal. And the aroma that you get from these, especially when they boil in, is just, oh my gosh, incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's all manual there in determining the. Well, I presume you have a plan to cut at certain points, and then using your flavor profile, then and basically nosing, you basically determine when is the right time to cut.
That's exactly it. So you rely heavily on your senses in the micro distillery. So like sights, sounds, smells. Oh my gosh, you get so in tune with them. Like I always say the story as well with the 3 pot stills. Like I know every parent says about their newborn baby when they cry, that means their nappy needs to be changed. They need to be fed. Whereas with those 3 pot stills, I know every sound they make and what it means. If it's getting towards the end of a distillation, the smell, if it's getting to the stage where it needs to be cut, it's just it's incredible what you pick up. But yeah, it's fantastic work in there. And like I was saying, your 3 main ways of being innovative in the micro distillery is, number 1 is your mash bill. Number 2 is your distillation, and number 3 is the maturation aspect. So this distiller safe really comes into the distillation aspect because we're able to assess the distillate as it's coming in directly off the still. So
yeah. I mean, how difficult is it for you when you leave the micro distillery to turn that off and go into normal mode and not be snipping everything as you go by it? Like, I mean, is that one of the consequences of working there, that you know it's your senses are?
It's so hard because when you're especially doing something like a campaign that's so new and different, it's actually insane. But I would genuinely spend all day and night down there if I could distilling, because I absolutely adore it. So for me, the 8 hours is nearly like it's a shame, because I guess so we kind of split the day into 2 when we're in the micro. So we have the morning, so we start at 8 o'clock in the morning and we finish at 4:30 in the evening. So I would try and get some distillations, like 2 or 3 on in the morning, then you'd break for lunch, and then you try and get a few more on in the evening. But usually when I finish up the evening distillation, I nearly want to keep going again.
Right, okay. So you do 3 or 4 distillations a day then, is it?
Yeah, you would. Ideally, you would be. If you have your immediate wash coming down from the main distillery, or if you wash there, you need your supply. But it's great, It keeps you busy. You're running around, you get your steps in anyway.
I'm sure, I mean, in terms of actually determining what you're doing each day, is every day different, or do you have a program that is laid out in advance? Or
so we try and plan, but as I say, the best laid plans often go awry. We try and plan out for the week, and in fairness now, majority of the time it just sticks to the plan. But the beauty of the micro is no day is ever the same. So you do have that variation every day. Like, example, the other day now I was filling casks, but the day before that I was hoping to reduce down my spirit with reverse osmosis water that we use, but my flow meter actually died, so I had no way of telling how much water I was adding into it.
Right, okay.
A problem like that straight away means you can't keep carrying on with your process. So I had to get on to the lads in maintenance, and fair enough, they came down straight away and fixed it for me. But just small things like that, because it is manually operated, like even small things can go wrong, can have a huge impact on your day-to-day schedule and can slow you down. But like, that is the beauty of it at the end of the day as well. So everything happens for a reason, as they say as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, the gin is where you kind of started. What did you learn from that experience to bring to the whiskey side?
Oh, definitely the art of patience as well. I always say this, that the 2 traits a distiller needs is creativity and patience. And the gin is a totally different beast in comparison to the whiskey side of things. So as I was saying, Mickey's Belly is so old that he can be a bit temperamental at times. So you do have to whisper sweet nothings to him and keep him sweet. But he's fairly good now. But the gin distillation would take an awful long time. So sometimes up to like 6 hours. So you do need an awful lot of patience, and especially in that first hour and a half before it even boils in, because you're constantly monitoring like the pressure of the pot, the seal water, the temperature, everything. You're just constantly running around checking different things because it is such an old still and there is so much involved in the gin. Yeah. But it's great, the aroma as well that fills from the gin. Everyone knows when we're on gin, as soon as they come in, they could be the other side of the micro distillery and they come in through the doors and they know straight away because this wonderful like citrusy smell fills the place.
Yeah, I mean the citrusy note is very prominent in that for sure. And tell me, is it a single distillation or what way does it work in the gin still? Is it multiple distillations?
So there's different ways you can distill gin. So you can macerate gin. So you can soak your botanicals for a stated period of time and distill them off. Or else what you can do is you can place a plate in the line arm and place your botanicals on that. And what you do is your reduced alcohol will boil up and the vapors will pass through the botanicals on the plate and condense and collect the vapors that way. Or else what we do in Midleton with Mickey's Belly is an all-in method. So we'll actually add in our alcohol at a reduced strength and our botanicals all in once and start up the distillation, and it's one continuous run. So because it's all manually operated as well, when we do up our botanicals, we actually place them into cages. So we have a number of cages that go into our still. I wish I had a picture now to show you them, but we have these cages, and what we do is we actually place the cages on a weighing scales and we weigh them out by hand into these cages, and then we attach them using cables from one end. There's a bar behind the man door, and we attach one end of the cable to that and the other to the arm of the basket, and we place them into our still and start them up. And the only way I can describe it is it's essentially like a tea bag's in a giant big kettle, because our gin still uses a steam jacket. It doesn't use a heat exchanger. So it's basically sat in a steam jacket and boiling up. So they basically our cages are like tea bags for us.
So that is the older style, would be, using the jacket as opposed to exchangers.
That's exactly it. So whereas in comparison to our whiskey side, we use the plate heat exchangers in all three pots. So you have the constant recirculation, but it's indirect contact with the product, whereas it's indirect with the gin, but it's that steam jacket. So it looks different, and it's so nice to be able to explain that to visitors when they come in and they can see it for themselves and get their heads around it as well. But the gin is great, and it's one clean run. So
no cuts in or anything like that, obviously.
Yeah, we do some cuts. Yeah, we do a head cut and a cut to our spirit as well. Yeah. So
one single cut.
Yeah, one single cut. We get a Directive likewise off Catherine as well. So I have that as well to play around with. So yeah, it's great. I love being able to switch between the two. It's fantastic because you can make gin for like a stated amount of time. You can make whiskey for a stated amount of time, but it's so refreshing to be able to jump between the two, and it just keeps things lively and fresh. And you nearly be thinking about the other side of things also, and you'll be getting ideas for, like, say, the gin or the whiskey when it's getting close to switching over again. So it's great.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing then that is the big difference, obviously, you're dealing with 3-pot stills, but as we'll discuss later on, you don't necessarily use all three. So this latest release was actually a double distilled.
That's it. Yeah. So like I was saying before, like your three main ways of being innovative are your mash bill, your distillation, and maturation. So in terms of distillation, because it is manually operated and we do have that element of freedom in the micro distillery, we're able to play around with that and push the boundaries. So we can perform double and triple distillations. So a triple distillation is like the traditional Irish way of distilling. So it gets that lovely, smooth, mellow character. Whereas we're able to play around with a double here in the micro. And as you've seen last week, we launched our Method of Madness Rye and Malt, and that was actually double distilled. But we actually don't hide as well the fact that we triple distilled it also. But we felt that the double distillation was ready to be released. So in comparison, what we found was that the double distillation gives you like a real burst of flavor that we hadn't seen previous to this. So we find it's a bit more like more like almost robust. And we thought that played really well with the rye, because the rye does have that natural spicy character and like a heat to it. So double distillation just played excellent into that as well. So as cheesy as it sounds, I keep saying I think the rye and the malt was like not a match made in heaven, but a mash made in heaven.
Well, yeah, absolutely it was. It was, and it's it caught a lot of people off guard, of course, as well. But let's just say now, as Henry, your predecessor.
That's it, exactly.
Yeah, and that's somebody old. Yeah. So look, I mean, the talk is all about this now, the latest release. And as I said, it's the first release from the micro distillery. There are other releases under the Midleton Madness brand. And, I think you talked there about the different elements that affect whiskey. And, we had the cask playing the biggest influence, I think, in the previous releases, like the mulberry wood, the acacia, the cherry, the chestnut, and Hungarian oak, I think, as well. But this is the first release from the micro distillery that is its own distillate, and the result is phenomenal, and it's also very unexpected. So nobody would have really predicted the fact that it would be so heavily rye influenced. So it's a 60% rye, 40% malted mash bill. And I actually have a bottle here, which Mr. Garland kindly dropped down to it. And honestly, I had a sniff of it, so I haven't actually tasted it yet. I've been trying to be good, and I'll have a go now. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about how this was composed and how you put it together.
Yeah, so our Midleton Madness Rye Malt is the newest addition to our Midleton Madness family. So previous to this release, everything that has been in part of the Midleton Madness range has focused really around maturation innovation. So the likes of Finbar Curran, he'll be working heavily with Kevin O'Gorman to source different wood types, cask types, and really play around with that element of innovation. Whereas our rye malt is really distillate driven. So it was the first of its kind for the Midleton Madness family and for our distillers. So a bit of backstory to it. Yeah. So as I previously mentioned, I work closely with Catherine Condon. She's the distiller of the main distillery now. But Catherine actually came in to Irish Distillers as part of the Jameson graduate program back in 2014. So when Catherine came in, she was working closely with Carol Quinn, our archivist, and Carol's fantastic. Carol's actually very close to us in the micro distillery, and same with Jerry Buckley. He's only down the way from us. Yeah. And from working with Carol, we're able to look back on ledgers, diaries, notebooks from John Jameson, the first, second, and third. Like myself and Kevin were only up recently there with Carol, and we spent the day up with Carol looking at ledgers and notebooks. Yeah. And she actually showed me a distillery ledger from 1888. And I had only previously mentioned to Kevin that because the micro distillery is manually operated, I don't ask me where my biggest fear is from of this, but my biggest fear is that someday I'd forget to empty the effluent or the residues out of the pot at the end of the day, and I charge fresh stuff in on top. I don't know why I have this fear, but she actually showed me in one of the old distillery ledgers from that date that they actually noted that's exactly what happened, because it was a very similar process. It was like the micro, it was all manually operated, and they actually forgot to discharge the pot, and they put fresh produce in basically on top and filled it up to the top, and they had to discard all of it. And you can actually see at the bottom of the ledger, they wrote like Scully was to blame. So they actually blamed who it was.
Right, so, well, that's a warning for you.
As soon as I seen that, Kevin got a right laugh out of that as well. So I just told him before we went up that was my biggest fear. Yeah. But so that's an example of we were able to go back and look at all of these notebooks and diaries. So that's where Catherine, she was working with Carol, and she actually came across John Jameson III's notebook from 1857. And from there, you can actually see, Carol showed us and everything, in the notebook, there is the first mention of different grain types. So rye was mentioned, there's a few others like oats and wheat. There was our standard barley, malt, maize, everything was there. But from this sparked an idea for Catherine. So with this knowledge then, Catherine went up, like I previously mentioned, to our pilot plant in our main distillery, in our main laboratory. And from there, she was able to play around with various percentages of different mash bills. So a lot of trial and error did go into it, but then they did select that 60% rye to the 40% malt.
And I mean, it is extreme. It is an extremely rich in the rye side, and I'm sure it hasn't been done in Ireland before. But I mean, what was the thinking behind taking it so far? Because it doesn't fit into any technical specification other than it is Irish whiskey, and of course, you guys are synonymous with the. Well, I suppose the Method and Madness of the micro distillery range, they have played around with more, but this one is well out there.
But we always ask that question in the micro distillery, like, why not? Why not push things? Like, we're always every day questioning, is this right for innovation? Is this right for our brand? Is this right for driving the Irish whiskey category forward? Like, these are the questions we always are asking ourselves, like myself and Catherine, when we sit down and decide what we want to do for the micro, because we really want to push those boundaries and come up with things that are wild and wacky, but it is trial and error at the end of the day for us as well. It's really pushing our knowledge to the extreme also. So it's very world first for us anyway. And with the rye element, the malt element, we didn't want to hide that. So we did put it on the bottle because it is 40%. And I do find, when you're tasting it out, Sergio, it's going to be interesting to see, but it's very spicy at the start, but it mellows out towards the end. And that is your malt coming into play. So it's fantastic. It's great. It's a great balance and complement of each other.
Very much so. And I get a bit of citrus off it as well, and star anise as well.
And a lot of people have got that, and menthol notes nearly from it as well. So
I can see the mint side of it.
So
and a little bit of butanic as well. It's really very viscous as well. I'm noticing as well in the glass. Is that the rye element that would be doing that, or?
Yeah, and it's very light in color as well in comparison to some of our previous releases. And the reason behind that as well is because we matured it in ex-American bourbon barrels. So we matured them in, actually, it was 50-50 of B1s and B2s. That stands for first fills and second fills. So first fill is our basically second fill after it's filled with bourbon. So we didn't want to lose that lovely spicy character of the rye, because it would be a shame. Now, it should follow through, but you wouldn't want to be putting it into like a cask that was very sensitive and would really directly impart the spirit. That's why we put it into the likes of B1s and B2s, because we wanted to keep that lovely character of the rye to the fore, and we didn't want to mask it. But like, that's not to say we haven't been playing around with other things in the micro distillery. Like at the minute now, the other day I was filling some Oloroso sherry butts, so that's exciting as well. Like, we're always trying to think of new things or play around. So it's great. And the guys at the Bond are fantastic as well to work with. Like, they're always throwing some ideas as well.
Well, we'll try and drag out of you what you're working on a little bit further on. But in terms of this one, and it really gives you a mouth-watering feel as well. It's very viscous. I love the heat that you get from it. It's almost those chili notes that you get from the rye, because that is crispy, spicy. It's fantastic, and it's lovely that it's so different as well to everything that we have done so far. It really just stands out from the crowd, and I love the fact as well that it's distillate driven, because I just love myself distillations and playing around with that element. It would have been a shame to mask the rye element and the spice notes with too much of a cask influence. But what were the challenges of dealing with rye?
So one example is I actually spent some time in the quality lab as well. And when you're actually brewing rye, when it's filtering, it can actually cause some trouble as well. So I know with the guys in the lab, they'd be monitoring the fermentation as it's occurring. So they actually have to kind of get innovative as well in there. So one thing that they did was, when they were filtering, normally we'd filter everything under gravity, but for the rye, they have to filter under a vacuum pump, because it's very thick and stodgy like porridge, and that's all your beta-glucans that are there. So I love the way across the board, everyone, when it comes to like nearly Method Madness, has to get very innovative.
Yeah. So what's the fermentation like on this? Does it undergo a normal fermentation period?
It'd be very similar enough, but we'd be keeping a close eye on it because it is it's a lot different than anything we've done before. It's something like we wouldn't be as familiar with say our barley and our malt. But that's what's exciting as well about Method Madness. It is trial and error at the end of the day, and a lot of experimentation went into it before we commit to these things. But like, that's what's so exciting about, as I was saying, the mash bill element. Like, you've all these different grain types that you can experiment around with, And like to me, that excites me every single day, all these different types. So this is just the first of many that are yet to come. And if you're at the launch there recently, you would have seen that Kevin gave away a little teaser as well. And I'm sure, Sergio, you've mentioned it before in your blog posts about the oats. That is as well maturing away our Method Madness oats. So that's one thing that's yet to come. And
I was fortunate enough when the Hungarian Method Madness was released, the 28-year-old, was the port one. That Catherine and Kevin and Dave were there, and they brought 2 samples with them. I think they brought a 60% rye malt and a 60% oat malt, and it was a 60% and above ABV. So this is the water, but it's great to see the progression of it,
yeah, exactly. Like you would have seen what you tasted and gotten an exclusive look at was what we call our new make spirit. So that would have been directly after it was produced. So you would have had it fresh off the still.
No, I did, and it's amazing. It sticks out in my mind because it was something very, very different at the time. It was something that nobody would have expected. So I mean, the flavor profile. I mean, there's obviously a lot less heat off this as well, but the notes, I still remember the notes of this as being very similar, and at a 46%, actually, it's very easily drinkable.
Yeah, it is. Like, and that's exactly it. Like, it's such a good, because it's distillate driven. Like to me, it's very exciting because I am Distiller in my distillery, and like I was saying before, like Catherine has been in my shoes. She's done this job before, and like for her to be able to see this release from the very start to the very end being released, like it's just incredible to be part of that journey from the very start. And likewise with you, Sergio, like you've been part of our Method Madness family from the very start. You see some of our hidden gems.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan. I really do think that, from the packaging to the branding to the labeling, it's the most innovative product out there, and this certainly pushes it even further. So I'm looking forward to see, and you telling us what's going to be coming out in the next few years. But
at the launch we did a tasting. So I did I did 2 new make tastings. So they're new make spirit. So I did a comparison of our traditional pot still. So that would be a 60% barley to 4% malted barley and a normal distiller's yeast. And the trial that I have been running over the last number of weeks, I'll give you a little hint, is so we're very lucky in the fact that we're connected so closely to the main distillery. So we have been able to isolate a select fermenter above, fermenter 92. And from there, we've installed some pipe work from that fermenter directly down to the micro distillery to my wash charger. So that's where I can draw my wash into my wash pot and start off my distillations. So I have been trialing over the last number of weeks. I've been working with Mary. They're our yeast supply company based in the UK. And they came over with different strains of yeast. And we were able to do a number of trials to see if we could maybe select a yeast strain and work from there. So we actually selected an ale yeast strain. And what we did was, in that isolated fermenter, we created a brew. And over the last number of weeks, I've been drawing it down very slowly, may I add, because the micro is very micro in comparison to the main distillery. And I've been bringing it down in batches of 5,000 litres. So over the last number of weeks, I've been playing around with that and the distillation element and also the maturation element. So it's very interesting what's coming off. So the guys that were there at the launch were actually able to do a comparison of our traditional using our distiller's yeast versus our ale yeast, and having the only difference being yeast strain, having the exact same mash bills and same distillation. And it's just been incredible to note the difference. So
is there a big difference?
Oh, 100%. And we actually ran some laboratory analysis, GC analysis on our new make of the trial that I've been running. And it actually backs up our sensory analysis, that it says that we have actually doubled the amount of compounds of those like lovely fruity notes that you get. So even before I even began distilling, I knew we were in for a treat, because when that batch of 5,000 litres of wash comes into that wash charger, the aroma that fills the micro distillery, especially it's great if tours are coming in, and because it's very close to them and they can smell it. But straight away you get that lovely esters like banana on your nose straight away. And from actually nosing and carrying out sensory on our distillate, the likes of like salted caramel and apple and everything have come out through it. So it's phenomenal. I'm actually so proud of it as well. I'm very biased, but it's great. But like, that's just an example of what's to come. Like, we have so much innovation that we're sat on in the micro distillery that is yet to be released. And it's just, we're always constantly carrying out distillate reviews. So this is where we like to call the big noses come into play. So the likes of Kevin, Billy, Dave, Dee, so they will all go into a room, sit down and assess what we have maturing stock, and also our make over our recent weeks, and seeing like, oh, maybe we should mark this for future projects because this is a bit special, you know. So it's great the way it's constantly being looked after and assessed. So it's a great brand to be part of.
Yeah, I mean, you're very fortunate to be in the first batch, if you like, of the Brewing and Distilling course in the first place. But I know you came first in your class as well. You've been very modest, so and it's great that. I mean, you were telling me you were planning on going off to Canada, and you got a call.
I know, yeah. So initially, I had planned, when I finished a placement, when I walked out of Irish Distillers, I was like, okay, I'd absolutely adored my time, but I don't know what the future has in store. And I think everyone can say that over the last 18 months, what has occurred, like no one knows what's around the corner or what's to come from the future. But when I finished college, I had plans to go to Canada with some of the girls. So I actually had messaged the guys in our stores asking for a reference, because I really wanted to have those references, because I was planning to maybe go over to maybe breweries or distilleries over in Canada to get that experience over there. And one day I actually got a call, and it was the Midleton number. And I was like, why are they ringing me? Because I'm sure if anyone deals with us in Midleton, you know that we kind of are a bit slow to get back to emails. So I had forgotten after I sent it. So I got a call, and it was from a woman in HR. And she had said to me that, that the role had become available in the Micro Distillery in Midleton, and would I be interested in coming down for an interview, as my name had been mentioned. So of course, who says no to an offer like that? So I think it was like the next day or the day after, I went straight down for the interview, and it was Brian and Dave Harper at the time that were interviewing me. So it was great catching up with them as well. So I was very fortunate enough that I could come back. So I've been in the micro up until COVID, and then I did some time in our quality lab as well, which is incredible to deal directly with like our suppliers and see how the direct impact our grains have, say, to our main distillery, and like problem shooting as well, and dealing with like the shifts on the weekends and calling the quality shots. And then eventually, then only recently there since July, I've gone back down to the micro, and I've been in the micro ever since. So I'm delighted to be back down there as well. Like, I absolutely adore it. And initially, how I first visited Midleton was as part of our course. We came down as a day trip to Midleton Distillery, and Kieran O'Donovan, he was actually working in the Whiskey Academy at the time. So he brought us into the micro, and even though the micro, I think this might have been January or February, I remember it was so cold, and actually the micro wasn't even working. Everything was shut down. But from the minute I went in there, I actually just turned to the girls and I was like, this is it. Like, this is what I want to do. And they probably thought I was cracked. But I was so determined. And I never forget, when I went back then to college, I actually said to one of my lecturers, and she was so for Midleton. She really loved Midleton. It was like, 100% put your name in for it. She was like, it's a fantastic place. They're absolutely lovely. And it wasn't for Judith, like, pushed me to do it as well. Like, I don't know where I'd be now today, but she was incredible as well. So thank God I had that support as well from DIT. Like, they were fantastic as well through all my years in college. But yeah, it's been incredible.
We're questioning there from Connor. Connor, how are you? Hope you're keeping well. Would you ever use other types of beer yeast, lager, wheat beer, etc.?
Yeah, so I don't know what I can't say, but we have played around with different strains of yeast. Like, there is a wine yeast that we could play around with, our ale yeast. We have distillers yeast. Like, that is so exciting to me, because the only way I can describe it is, like I was saying to yourself, Sergio, if both of us started off with even just the same mash bill at the end of the day, and I went into the micro one day and you went into the micro another day, and we both distilled differently and we placed our spirit into different barrels, I'm sure at the end of the week, I would have a different product and you would have a different product. So that just shows you the variation you can get when you even just start with the same mash bill. So likewise with the yeast, like, there's so many possibilities that you can do with it, and that's what excites me so much. And that's the beauty as well of being linked so close to the main distillery, is we have that connection to that pilot plant. So any ideas that we have, that's what I love about Midleton. Everyone is so supportive and willing to share that knowledge and develop you. So I could go to them with the craziest ideas, but they would be so happy with it, and they'd be like, okay, they give you your honest answer, and they would be like, we can give this a shot. And you can go in and do some trials, some mad trials, and see if it's worth upscaling and bringing down to the micro distillery. So yeah, definitely playing around with yeast is a big up and coming factor for us. There's no doubt about it. So it's incredible to see what we've done to date with the trials I've been running. So that just excites me and lights the fire under me even more to do some further trials. So yeah, definitely.
It's one of the things, I suppose, that's always a big challenge for companies of the size of Irish distillers. You know, when they have one product that is so successful, to actually keep on pushing and try the different things and lead in innovation. And it's very easy, I suppose, to sit in your laurels and carry on with the success of Jameson. And I can understand why, you know, the micro distillery was set up in the sense that, you know, you're producing flat out, and I presume the vast majority would be for Jameson. I think there's maybe 1 or 2 weeks of maybe Redbreast and Midleton the rest of the time. But, you know, the fact is that with such a high percentage of the Irish whiskey industry being Jameson, it can be quite tricky to stop the plant and do experimentation. So the micro distillery gives them that outlet as well.
Yeah, and like the whole ethos behind the brand is that it is merging that like creativity and tradition and heritage of, say, the likes of our master distillers, Kevin O'Gorman, Catherine, even Brian when he's here, and you're merging it with like the young talent and apprentices like myself and other graduate distillers. So we kind of bring the madness to the brand. So like what I mentioned previously about Catherine working with Carol, like Catherine was able to see those ledgers and the tradition that was there, and she brought the madness to it and was able to run away with those ideas and create something new from it. So I love that fact that we do almost pay heed to tradition, but you are literally pushing the boundaries and trying to create something new. So it's great that you can put your stamp on it, because I've also always said that every distiller that has passed through the doors of the micro distillery to date has put their own like flair and kick on things. And I love being able to see like everything in the micro is manually done. So all our logs as well, like in the past, are handwritten. So I love actually being able to go back to past campaigns that have been done under different distillers and looking at the logs and seeing any comments that were made. Like, to me, that's so interesting. And seeing like the reasons why they made cuts, maybe why they stopped the distillation all of a sudden, like all these different things. Like, I just love that. And I love the fact that everyone has come in, has put their own flair on things. And like, I'm excited now for what's yet to come with myself and Catherine, because I am relatively new to the role, but everything that has happened so far has just really excited me for the year ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure. I mean, it's an envious position that you have, actually, to be able to play around and experiment so much. But how much guidance and how much of a help is it having the masters there? You know, having the likes of Kevin and Billy and Ger Buckley and, you know, all those experienced staff with, you know, 25 years, 30 years plus experience and more. How much do you learn from them?
I know, like it's incredible to say I work with them every day. Like, you see the likes of all the guys in like your magazine or other magazines and blogs, and it's a real pinch me moment to be like, I'm in a meeting with them the next hour, you know. I actually work with them every day. Like the likes of Ger and his cooperage, he's only down the way from us in the micro, and Carol's across the way in the Distiller's cottage. And even with Kevin, he's probably going to kill me now for saying this, but even last week, I was asked him when he started in the company, and he started when I was only 1. So.
Oh dear. Okay, well, I don't fancy your meeting with Kevin tomorrow. But
I know. But it's so incredible to work with them, and for them to pass on that knowledge to me. Like, it's a real pinch me moment, and like I am so grateful as well and appreciative that every single day I look forward to going to work. I think it's very rare for someone my age to actually say they thoroughly enjoy what they do and they're excited to go into work and they don't mind doing anything extra or like having to stay late to finish distillation. Like, I absolutely adore what I do, and it's a real like surreal moment that I get to go into that micro every single day and unlock the door and be like, what are we doing today? Like, what's next?
Yeah. No, it's fantastic to see, and I can see like you love it there. But one of the questions I had was in terms of bringing that skill set from college into the real world. So obviously TUD and DIT, they tend to be more practical, hands-on courses. So I know you do the theory, and I know they're very heavily linked with industry as well. How prepared were you for that transition from, if you like, theory to actually implementing everything in practice?
Yeah, so DIT were great. They're very hands-on. That's what I actually love about them. So sometimes it'd be sink or swim situation, but you'll find out very quickly if you're good at something or not. So in college, we did a lot of practicals. So I remember one of our modules, we were all split into groups, the 10 of us. So some of us made beer, some of us made cider, and we made wine. So it's all trial and error at the end of the day. And I'll never forget, it was up on the 6th floor lab, and it was so cold up there. I'll never forget, this is at the start, I think it was during the winter as well. And we were starting our fermentation. But like, it's a learning experience at the end of the day, but I'll never forget, our fermentation actually never even happened because it was just so cold. It never happened. But we learned afterwards that you can get things like heat mats to sit on and get magnetic stirrers to distribute the heat, like all these different things you can do. But then also the element of placement as well. Like that really does, I always highly recommend for people to do placement if they can, because it is a make or break situation for some people. Like they really get to decide if they like it and this is what they want to do, because it's very hard to sit in a classroom for 4 years and then go into industry and realize, okay, this isn't actually for me. So to be able to go in and get the hands-on experience like I did in the micro was just like, I knew straight away from the minute I went down there. I probably pestered Brona and Henry so much when I was down there, but it all, I think, stood to me in the end, because it was an incredible place to get experience of, and it really is a pinch me moment every day working there.
Well, like I said, I was talking to some of your supervisors in TUD, and Will Keating here was one of those. Was one of your supervisors. Congratulations, delighted to see you. And he spoke very highly of you. And like I said, you are a high achiever, as they say, and you got what you deserve. But I mean, what advice would you give to somebody who wanted to get into the brewing and distilling side of the business, specifically, I suppose, the whiskey business?
Yeah, I think the best advice I've gotten is definitely like keep your head down in terms of your education, like your studies. Try and absorb as much as you can. Then when you actually go out, try get your placement, try get your foot in the door, stick your neck out, ask those questions. Always try and develop yourself, and try and even connect maybe with other people, like on the likes of like LinkedIn or other companies, and really try and even go into distilleries for a day and get that experience. If you talk to someone and see, because it's just, I can't speak more highly enough of the place, Irish Distillers, but I'm sure other distillers are the same with their companies as well. But like I always say, once you have a love and a passion for something, you won't have to battle at the end of the day, because it's very easy for you to be fully qualified and to sit there and not want to pass that knowledge on or learn and develop. Whereas if you have a passion and a drive to continuously like drive the category forward or trial new things, you won't have to battle. Like every day is going to be incredible for you.
Yeah. I mean, do you feel that sense of responsibility? I mean, you've joined the biggest Irish whiskey brand in the world, or if you had joined any other, I mean, there is that notion of paying heed and ode and respect to the heritage. But is there that sense of, I want to put my mark on it and do something different? And is that something that you aspire to?
I think you get the balance and the best of both in work, because it's very, like, for it being such a big brand, that's what drew me into it so much, is the people at the end of the day. Like, everyone in there is absolutely lovely. Like I always say, people probably think there's something in the water in Midleton, because everyone thoroughly enjoys their job and looks forward to it every day. And it's a great place for learning, and it's very family orientated. Like, in there, they're just fantastic. It basically is like your family. Like, if someone has a big event, like the likes of Catherine, she couldn't make the launch now because she was off getting married, and like you'd swear everyone was connected to her. Like, everyone was just so happy for her to go off. So it's just so small orientated like that. But you get that natural, like, different roles, like the likes of the blenders, the master distillers. Like, you do get a bit of like limelight nearly from it, but a lot of hard work goes into it as well in the background at the end of the day.
Yeah. Are you aware of the spotlight that you come under when you are a distiller, especially in a big successful company like yourselves? Is it something that you're aware of, that people say, oh, people are talking about me, I know, and is it difficult to keep a level head?
I think I'm the opposite more than anything else. Like, it's still so surreal to me that I'm still back in the micro. Like, I don't think it has hit me yet, but I just have just such a genuine love and passion for the whole brewing and distilling area that even normal tours that come in every single day, if anyone has any questions, like, I would nearly be throwing myself on top of the tours that come in, like really wanting to ask for someone to ask a question, to get involved, because I have just such a passion for it. But I don't think anyone will get a big head from it. No, once you thoroughly enjoy it, that's the main thing.
Yeah, and the tours are open down there, and you can go and visit the micro distillery.
You can indeed, yeah. So normal tours will pass through. So you'll actually walk through the micro distillery. So it's great for tourists to actually see the live distillation process happening right in front of them. So they're there for, like I was saying, when I pipe down my wash, or when I'm making cuts, or even starting and stopping distillations. They'll actually get to see me running up and down to the platform, getting the steam, getting the vent, the pumps. Like, they get to see it all. So it's great. And we actually have a behind the scenes tour as well, where the tour comes up on the platform and gets to actually look at the distillate flowing through the safe. And if they're there at the right time, sometimes they're able to make the cuts manually themselves. So
all right, okay.
Experience, yeah.
I'll have to time I think Henry showed me around last time and he gave me a great tour of the place. I mean, it's way too complicated for my simple mind, but it was fascinating to see that it is. But when you take that and you go into the main distillery, right, which is highly computerized, highly repeatable, because it has to be. I mean, you're dealing with enormous volumes there. What can you bring from the micro distillery and apply to the main distillery? Or can you say, look, I know what the computers are doing now. I know what this is for and what that's for.
Yeah, like, the micro is a great basis of knowledge to have. So every distiller that's passed through the doors of the micro distillery has gone on to do different things in the main distillery. So the likes of Henry's gone into safety. Larissa is our production day supervisor of the garden and the barrel crock. So she looks after the pots and the columns. And then you have the likes of Catherine, who's now the distiller of the main distillery. So you have all these different options to play around with, but it all stems from that base knowledge that you gain in the micro distillery. And you have so much responsibility as well down there, because you're basically responsible for the whole process, like the whole manual process, the quality aspects of it as well, even sensory analysis that's carried out as well. You're constantly assessing your products. So you do get that fundamental core, but like that's so vital for like problem shooting or troubleshooting up in the main distillery. So it's great to have that basis.
Yeah, and the education that you got from the TUD, is that, what you learn in theory? How much of it do you actually get to implement, or is it only when issues arise that you really say, okay, well, from my knowledge in theory, it could be this, and obviously then it helps you.
Yeah, you do play back into your stuff in college. Like, it's actually mad. Like, I would, even the other night now, I was messaging one of the girls being like, do you still have those lecture notes from back in third year? And I was like hoping she'd have them. She did, in fairness, but it's so handy that we can pull back those resources and have, because like, we have fantastic lecturers that were in like the likes of Will. I'm sure he's watching right now. The likes of Will, he's great to have as well. So to have people that have that industry experience and to pass it on to you, so that you're able to get kind of like an edge for when you go in there, so that you're not totally in the dark. It's great. So they have real like live situation examples that they're able to give you. But yeah, no, you do apply an awful lot of it to every day.
Yeah. I have one question then, in terms of, the theory, that these compounds exist in various fermentations and so forth, and then you go and ferment, and you go and distill, and you go. I mean, how closely aligned is what you've learned in theory to the end result that comes out? Is it very predictable, or do you end up with, black sheep that come out, and maybe they're very successful and maybe they're not, you know.
Yeah, like the example of that would be going back to like when my gin, similar enough, when I did all the trial distillations, like I ran some GC analysis on every distillation afterwards just to verify compounds, favorite compounds, to back up our sensory analysis elements. But like it just showed you every single batch. The reason, like the only way I can describe it was going back to the start when we were doing our gin. We started off with, say, one botanical, and once everyone was happy with that and sensory, we moved on to the second one, onto the third, onto the fourth. And sometimes you'd be adding things in or taking things out and reassessing it again. So that whole element, like some things would surprise you nearly, like different botanicals that went into our gin. So say our cardamom and our lavender, like they went head to head for a while in our sensory analysis because people thought cardamom was very spicy. So we added in the lavender and that balanced it, that lovely floral note balanced it. Yeah. And likewise, I actually worked closely with Dave Quinn at the time. And he was mad to put, I don't know if this is kind of the story behind all the botanicals, but Dave Quinn was mad to put in caraway seeds into the gin because his nanny used to bake with them. So he was just like, one day, she's like, we throw some in. And I was like, sure, why not? We did a distillation and it turns out everyone loved it in it. So it's stuck in it and it's one of our 16 botanicals now. So it just shows you that, there's some things that you wouldn't expect that come out of it. But like that's all the reason behind Method Madness. It is all that trial and error. And that's what's so exciting about the brand. Yeah.
Well, look, I mean, you've told us already that you've got a beer yeast whiskey coming out at some point, and I think you've kind of told us that you have an oats one on the pipeline and a triple distilled version of what the rye and malt. What else have you been working on?
I think I gave away enough secrets tonight, Sergio. I think it.
We did quite well. I mean, I've heard about a Japanese cask possibility. For maturation.
All I'm going to say is that you're going to have to ask Kevin the next time you have him on your podcast.
I don't think he'll come on the podcast now after this, but Kevin's fantastic. So, look, I mean, it's fantastic. I know you have something scheduled for this evening, and I appreciate you. I know we started half an hour earlier, and
thank you for that.
It was great to get you for the hour. Look, I'm delighted for you. It's really reassuring that the future of Irish whiskey is with people like yourselves and the enthusiasm and the love you have of what you're doing, and you know it's in great hands. And gosh, to be 20 years younger and be able to make a career choice again and
never follow.
Oh, it is. But by the time anything I produce would be matured, it would be, apart from non-drinkable, it would I would be long gone. But look, I appreciate it. I really wish you the very best of success in your future career. What are your hobbies outside of distilling? What do you get a chance to do?
Yeah, so that's what I was saying. I actually recently only started back up Gaelic football. So I haven't played, since I was about, I'd say 12 or 13. So I was actually looking to join a club, and one of the guys in work was delivering some barrels to him, some microphone there recently. And I was talking to Jer, and Jer said that he actually coaches, I think it's under 14s or under 12s. And I was like, oh, grand, Jer. I was like, stick me in with those, because I haven't played in so long. But he refused, and he was like, no. He was like, you have to join your own group. So I started back up with that, and it's been incredible. So yeah, training 3 times a week. So yeah, I have to get up to speed with those girls. But yeah, it's great to have something outside of work as well.
And living in Cork, isn't it too much of a shock to the system, is it?
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah, I actually love Cork. It's very like almost small city like, and everyone here is just so friendly. I don't know what it is about the Cork people, but they're great. I still haven't got the accent though yet.
No, you'll work on that. Well, look, even Billy Layton is here. So Billy, good evening. Hope you're keeping well. It's great to. It's a great camaraderie amongst the staff there, and I think that's fantastic. But to have people like that to be able to follow up and ask questions and bounce ideas off, and just by osmosis learn from them, I suppose, as well.
I know, yeah, it's incredible. Like, oh my gosh, Billy's fantastic as well. He's great. I think I harassed him with my gin as well at the time. He's
sure.
Great. So.
Yeah. Look, as I said, I know you're pushed for time. I really appreciate you taking the time out with us, and congratulations on your career and your appointment. And I'm thrilled for you. And long may it continue, and we see it's kind of innovative and groundbreaking new releases in the near future. So have a good evening. I know you've planned a meal out, which is nice to be able to do after all this COVID business.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Eva. Have a good night, and
thank you,
we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm delighted to be on, so thank you.
We're delighted to have you. Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, that's great. It makes you wish you were younger to go and start in the exciting whiskey business. And of course, there's such enthusiasm and such knowledge, and it has to be said, a lot of hard work. I mean, I know she's very modest. She came first in her class, and her project was first in the group as well. So everything that she's got, she's worked very hard for and deserves. And congratulations to the team down at Midleton for a fantastic release. Actually, I'm really drawn to this, and I certainly get memories of it when it was new make spirit. It's really come on fantastically. So look, thank you very much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you're interested in a career in brewing and distilling, maybe you want to check out TUD or one of the other colleges and look at that course. I think Eva's an inspiration to, I hope, many of the young people out there that are looking to get into the industry. So thank you very much. Have a good evening, and we'll speak to you next week. Slán.